Welcome to the Moved to Meditate podcast. I'm your host, Addie D. Hilster. If you're a yoga practitioner or teacher who knows that there's more to yoga than poses, but you're wondering where to find that, come join our quiet little party. Here you'll find resources to help you deepen your practice, as well as insightful conversations with yoga, movement, and meditation teachers from a range of traditions. On this podcast, we spotlight the more contemplative aspects of movement practice. So we talk about all things gentle yoga, meditation, yin, restorative, yoga therapy, mindfulness, and more. Listen in and connect to a community of like-minded practitioners. Hello, everyone. Thanks for popping in for today's conversation on the podcast. My guest today is Chris McDonald, who is a holistic therapist, which means she integrates practices like yoga and meditation into her mental health therapy work with clients. Through that work, she has gained a lot of experience in helping people to get started with meditation and overcome the obstacles that keep the practice from really sticking. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how to develop a meditation habit. So many of us know that meditation is beneficial and yet struggle to go from wanting to do it to actually doing it. We're going to explore what some of those disconnects and hangups might be, and you'll hear tons of practical ideas that can help you figure out how to fit meditation into your life. I think this episode will leave you feeling motivated and much better prepared to develop or renew your own meditation habit. And we can say hi to Mustache, the cutest kitty in the land, who just came in to help me do this recording. So he's my podcat. But before we jump into this episode, if you want a little more support for your at-home practice, remember you can check out the Move to Meditate class library, which has a large online catalog of mindful movement, yin yoga, and meditation practices. And I now have a free tier to the library membership because I thought in the spirit of a true library, there should be titles you can access for free. So now each month there are 5 classes that are available within the free level of the membership. You just sign up for your free library card and that gives you a login where you can access the free classes. The classes in the free tier will be on a rotation, so it'll be a different 5 videos from the catalog each month. And by the time this episode comes out, the new set of classes for February should be up. You can practice them as many times as you like during the month. There's no limit. It's just the 5 classes of the month. So you can go to movetomeditate.yoga/class library to get all the details and sign up for your free library card and practice with me. The link for this will be in the show notes, along with all of the other resources we mentioned in this episode. So let's dive in to this topic of developing a meditation habit. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. So today I am speaking with Chris McDonald, and Chris is also the host of a podcast called the Holistic Counseling Podcast, and it's a really fabulous resource for the integration of mental health and holistic modalities like yoga and meditation. So I thought it would be really fun to talk to her here, especially about meditation and how to really cultivate a strong habit to do the things that we want to do, like practice meditation. Chris is a licensed holistic therapist based in North Carolina, and she's also a trained yoga teacher and a dedicated meditation practitioner. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with her today. Welcome to the podcast, Chris.
I'm excited to be here. I am such a fan of this podcast and been listening through all your episodes one by one.
Oh, thank you. The feeling is mutual. I think your show is such a great resource too.
Oh, thanks.
Can you
Awesome.
tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are and,
Sure.
your work in the world?
I'm a licensed mental health therapist and I have an online practice. And I'm a holistic therapist, which is a little different than what most people think of therapy as more traditional with talk therapy. But I integrate yoga, meditation, mindfulness, lots of different holistic modalities into my practice. And I do consider myself a meditation teacher as well. because I've done meditation for so long and have so much experience and have experience in my own personal practice. So I do teach clients that. And part of what I do as a therapist is help clients develop these healthy habits and to create daily yoga and meditation practices. Not always successful, but I do my part to try to get them rolling with that and to maintain them. But that's the difficult part, I think, is we can start something, but it is getting that momentum going and keeping it going.
Yeah, we were talking about that before we started recording that, it's like one thing to know that this is a useful tool or a life enhancing practice.
Yes, for
And it's
sure.
another thing to like get ourselves to do it consistently. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
I'm curious about when you started your own meditation practice and what
Sure.
it was
Mm.
that like got you interested in that.
I've always been dabbling in meditation. So I used to buy books like, before there were podcasts and just try to practice on my own. And I remember in your series too, you talked about that sometimes dabbling on your own is good. But, then I kind of moved to, I think I need more help with this because I'm kind of struggling. And it was really hard to always stay focused or figure out what is the best way to do this and to do it consistently because I would just do it randomly. I'd be like, I don't understand how people can do this every day. Like, how do you do that? So I did
Yeah.
join a Buddhism group that was a Sangha that we would meet once a week and started off with some mindfulness meditation for 20 minutes. And that really helped me. And they were very motivated, dedicated meditators, which if you
Hmm.
want to learn something, get around some people who really have a good handle on it. That's really going to inspire you and help you because I remember asking this one question at the group because they would have different times you could ask questions and how do you do it every day? And the one girl just looked at me. She's just like, you have to set a time each day and you have to do it the same day or same time each day. And that was it. That was her advice. And I was like, huh, well, geez, why didn't I think of that? Because for me, I'm just like, I want to do meditation, but I'll get around to it. Right. And then I never did. Or I would once, a month or something. So really, that's how I kind of started with the practice.
That makes sense, and that really resonates for me that, like, being around other people who are dedicated to their
Yeah.
practice and who've been doing it a little longer, that's really inspiring and helps you to kind of intuit the different, benefits you might gain from it and to sort of pick up on a little bit of their energy and their momentum and use it to help,
Absolutely.
like, get yourself rolling. And, of course, pick their brain with tips.
And that's it. Yeah. And I went to a Buddhism temple here too. And that helped me too, because they would have like group meditation. Like I know you mentioned this too. Like sometimes just go into a group, that energy of it, and
Mhm.
everybody's there for the same purpose. That really inspired me too, just to see all these people that were so dedicated in their practices and have learned a lot of the techniques to keep it going.
Yeah, you don't have to do it alone, right?
Yes.
So
I think that's the
nice.
hard part to just do it when you're trying just by yourself. It's easy to give up.
Yeah, absolutely. Over the years, have you tried different types and styles of meditation, or was it kind of like a journey before you found this practice through the Buddhist community that works for you?
I think mostly what I do like is more of the mindfulness meditation. But I've tried different kinds with yoga, and I'm always open to trying new things. And sometimes I still will go back to some guided meditations I like with different styles and try to mix it up a bit, just to keep myself focused and in the practice.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense, and I was thinking that, like, when you're an absolute beginner, you might not even realize that there's different flavors and styles and types of meditation, different
Absolutely.
techniques, and sometimes it can take a while to really kind of find a fit. So, someone has tried meditation once or twice and they've kind of gone, this isn't for me. What would you suggest they try a few different things, or where do
Oh
they go
yeah.
from there?
Exactly. Try different ones, but I always say that there is a meditation for everyone. There is a different kind for everyone. And I know I have one of my episodes on my podcast, episode I think it's 64 on walking meditation. So if you're someone that's like me and Addie. We both love movement modalities.
Yes.
Guess what? You can do walking meditation if that's something that you might connect with more. So just know that just sitting, and I know I have a lot of clients with ADHD and anxiety, sometimes together. If that's you, then maybe a movement practice might be better. Because I think it's sometimes just sitting meditation is not for everybody.
And at least not by itself. Maybe
Yes.
helpful if you
Yeah.
precede it with some movement, or you
Yeah,
do movement for a
that's true.
while, and yeah, and then the meditation seated kind of opens up a little bit more. Yeah, I think that's very
Absolutely.
true. It can be hard to just like sit down and be still for so many of us.
Yeah, and again, just I think, looking at what are the myths of meditation, that it's not about clearing your mind. I think a lot of people get that confused, and I can't do it. I have too many thoughts. Well, that's okay. Just what is your relationship to your thoughts, right? Can you just notice them, just see them for what they are, and let them go?
And that's
Connect
the
to your
beauty of
breath.
mindfulness
Yes, I
practice, right?
know. Mindfulness meditation is
It
great.
doesn't leave out anything, even our
Yeah.
thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, just connecting with that and sensations, right? Just noticing what is there without changing it.
Mhm. Mhm. So we
Yeah.
don't have to like get everything all perfect before we can meditate.
Right, exactly.
Internally.
And yeah, and that's hard for people.
Yeah, I know. Well, we have these like images in our mind of like what it is to meditate or what it's supposed to feel like or look like.
Yes.
And it often feels a lot messier than that when we actually sit down and do it. And yet it works.
Right. Exactly. And can't be focused on the outcome of it. So whenever we do meditation, we have to just be present for what is there, see what's coming up for us, and that's okay to just be present. But I know, like you said, the images, I'm thinking of like somebody on a mountaintop just sitting there like a guru, right? That's meditating alone and totally connected to the universe. It's not always going to be like that for everybody.
Nope. Not in my experience, but it's still worthwhile. And that, you will have those occasional moments where you do feel like really in the flow of it, but it's not um it's not a goal oriented practice. It's really a
Yeah.
process
That's
oriented
hard for
practice.
people. Yeah, that is hard.
It's so hard. That
Exactly.
maybe that connects to the whole motivation disconnect.
Oh,
I don't know.
maybe. This is
Yeah,
true. Now we're uncovering something,
we're
aren't we?
starting to, yeah, uncover a little piece of that maybe, because we're so used to doing things with a specific goal or outcome in mind, that meditation maybe feels a little squishy, like we can't
Mm,
necessarily say what we've accomplished when we finished a meditation practice.
true. And I guess it's part of that productiveness of society, right? And
Yeah.
that we have to check things off our list and get things done. Meditation, check. Right. And hopefully you're not thinking of meditation that way, but
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. That I hadn't really thought about it like that, but maybe that is part of the reason it can be hard to motivate ourselves or justify to ourselves or whoever else we think we have to justify it to, that we're taking the time to do
yes.
this.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And I think it is making it a priority, making that intention, like with yoga, that we can make an intentional practice. But you really have to think about ahead of time and plan. Because I know I like to do mine in the morning and I plan my time, first thing in the morning, usually after yoga. Because yoga, like you mentioned, Addie, can help warm the body up, help warm the mind up, everything to get
Hmm.
ready for a meditation practice. And, just the night before can start. So if you're going to meditate in the morning, the night before, you need to tell yourself, I'm going to meditate tomorrow. It sounds silly, but it really can help to really say, okay, here's where I'm going to meditate. Where's my space? Where am I going to sit? Am I going to do guided or am I going to do it just quietly on my own? So planning ahead for that can really make you more successful.
That's really helpful to take some of the decision making out of it in the morning and take the waffling out of it. So before you've even set your alarm at night, you
Yes.
like know that you're going to get up and you don't have to think. You just have to roll out of bed, you know, go to the bathroom, whatever, and then get to your
Yes.
cushion and and then get it going. I like that.
Yes. And I think And I think too, if you do try to do a little yoga before, that might be a way for more people to be able to do meditation. Because I think if you just plop down and be like, "Hey, I'm going to meditate now, I'm good," you may not be in that mind space.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. Well, and speaking of mindfulness, right, the first foundation of mindfulness is mindfulness of the body. So,
Yeah.
how are we engaging with the body and preparing it
Yep.
for that seated practice of stillness, taking care of the body so that it's receptive and supportive of our meditation practice.
Yeah, for sure. And I think starting small, I think a lot of people, they get over enthusiastic. Oh, I'm going to do an hour every day of meditation and then 30 minutes of yoga. And then within 2 days, right? They
Mhm.
may not have been able to achieve that. And then they're like, oh, forget it. I can't do this.
Yeah. Um that is a good point, to really
Yeah.
like try to be realistic about the practice. So I want to unpack a few of these things. You've already given us quite a few really helpful tips. But even just going back to like why it's important to be consistent.
Yes.
Um, you talked about on one of your podcast episodes, you made this really interesting point talking about meditation where, there's a way that we might use it sometimes as like a band-aid, like when we're having a bad day and we're like, I
Yes.
need to go take a
Hmm.
few breaths and calm down, versus this, what we're talking about, making it a daily practice. Can you talk a
Yes.
little bit about that?
So you get out of meditation what you put into it. So if you use it, I call it the band-aid approach. So if let's say that you're having a crap day and it's just things aren't going well, maybe meditation is a tool you can use. Great. So you're going to use some meditation at the end of the day. But then the next day you don't do meditation and you're not into the habit. So I always say to try to do the preventative approach, which means that you're doing these practices because they're very healthy wellness practices, right? And they help, what they do with your nervous system is help you to be less reactive to stress. So hopefully that you'll have less reactivity once you can do this more often, because with meditation there's so many amazing benefits, and it actually changes your brain to make you more less reactive, to make you more calm. And I noticed once I got into that routine, I was like, wow, I'm much calmer. And I didn't even realize like how much stress I was actually feeling until I started
Hmm.
to do meditation. Of course, then I added yoga in, and that's a whole other conversation about how that helps with emotional regulation. But just using that meditation daily is where you're going to get the most benefit.
I think that is just a really important point, because we may think of meditation as a tool, and it's like, when do I pull the tool out of the toolbox? Well, when
Right.
I need it. But this tool works better the more often we use it.
And it gets
you
easier.
know,
That's the other thing too. So if
exactly.
you're not regular with it and it's been hard for you, just got to give it time too, because it does take some practice. And then once you're used to it, I know sometimes I can just sit and just go even without yoga. Sometimes I'm in that space pretty quickly, and it's your body just knows what to do once you get to that
Hmm.
space and that mindset of it.
Yeah, and it's true. I think that many of us start a meditation practice like maybe when we are going through something that's challenging, and it's part of what turns us on to
Right.
even taking this on. And that's all totally fine and good. But it's actually hard to learn when you're in distress. It's easier to learn meditation when things
Oh,
are kind of a little
yes.
smoother in your life. So if you carve out the time when things are kind of smooth in your life and you learn this, then this tool will be there for you the next time it's not so smooth and things are coming up.
Yes, you're speaking my language. That's what I talk to clients about, the importance of that, but the preventative practices, because your body will learn these skills. And I teach breath work too. So once you learn that preventatively, right, to use these practices, then it's much easier. Oh my gosh, in the moment, because the front of our brain, that prefrontal cortex, goes offline when we're in that fight or flight response. And it's so much harder to think and process and wait, what am I supposed to do? How many breaths in? Or how do I
Exactly.
meditate? It's really more of a struggle. And that's when people say it doesn't work because they're in that mode, right? But once you can get
Hmm.
used to that and get your body for that, And the good news is that if you're doing it preventatively, when the stress comes, you calm down quicker. You're
Yeah.
able to turn that parasympathetic nervous system on, which is our calm response, much quicker. So that's the good news.
Because you're literally training your system like on a physiological level. Like you talked about how it changes your
Yeah.
brain over time. It really does. I don't know if you have more you can say about that, but I think
Oh,
it's linked to this consistency. Like that's not going to
it
happen
is.
unless you do this often, right?
Exactly. Same with yoga, right? These are all
Mm-hmm.
practices that can really change your brain. And this is all research based too, that it actually can help rewire your brain. So let's say you're in a loop, a stress loop, and a lot of people, worry about things and it's really hard to break that worry habit. But with yoga and meditation, that it can actually rewire your brain out of that loop. But you do have to get the body involved. That's why me and Addie talk about yoga, because you do have to get the body involved, I think.
Yeah. I think it's like even more powerful when we have some movement practice alongside the stillness practice because
Yeah.
they
Mm,
have slightly different benefits, or the feeling of the
sure.
experience is slightly different, but they really complement each other beautifully.
Oh, yeah. And I think, too, the other thing is, so what happens when you miss a day? Let's say, okay, you're going to start and you've been doing good for a week, but then you miss a day. What goes through your mind? And how do you react? Because that's what's gonna set you up if you're gonna continue consistently. Because if you're beating
Mm-hmm.
yourself up, like, I always mess things up, I can never do this, what's wrong with me? So that's gonna lead to more distress, maybe some depression, anxiety. You're less likely behaviorally to continue. But if you say with self compassion, okay, today was an off day, I missed today, but that's okay. So I'm going to start again tomorrow. So when you miss a day, just tell yourself when you're going to do the next time and
Mm-hmm.
go from there. Because life happens. I miss days. It's okay. I'm not
Yeah,
100.
me
I
too.
don't think anyone's 100% all the time. It's okay.
No, but that's when, we practice sort of our mindfulness in the flow of life. If we've trained in this like formally in our practice, like day to day, then we can
Yes.
use those skills when we're stuck in traffic or when we're in a meeting or in some other
Yes.
situation. We use them like in their applied practical format.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I think that's a really important piece you were starting to tease out there about,
Yeah. Mm,
staying away from the shoulds and the guilt and like motivating ourselves that way and motivating ourselves
right.
more from self-compassion and intention. Can you say a little bit more about that and how to be on the lookout for that as you're preparing to practice?
Yeah. I think it's that awareness. Like, that's why I ask, what is going through your mind? What am I really thinking when I miss a day? And how can I change my relationship with those thoughts? That's important consideration to give yourself, because the more you get in that negative mindset, the more that it's going to be likely that you're not going to continue with this practice. And a lot of people say, oh, but if I am too nice to myself, right, then I'm not going to continue. But no, does it work to beat yourself up? Research shows that
Mm,
having that negativity, that negative voice does the opposite and takes us off track. So trying to treat ourselves, that's what self-compassion is treating
mm-hmm,
ourselves with kindness and
mm-hmm,
compassion and telling ourselves, you know what, I made a mistake. I didn't do my practice today, but that's part of being human. So recognizing that we're all part of humanity, we all have off days, it's okay. And sometimes even using touch with that, we can, just like in yoga, put our hand on our heart, hand on your belly if you want. You can even just grab your face, just kind of crush your face, being kind to yourself in those ways. And you know what that does also? Neurobiologically, that helps calm the nervous system too.
mm. So that it's not feeding those mean thoughts that are
Yes.
popping up.
Right. And we all have that inner critic, don't get me wrong, but developing
Yeah.
a different relationship with that and turning to more self compassion can help.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting comment. You said that sometimes people will say, well, I can't be too nice to myself because then I won't do
Right.
anything. 'Cause we sometimes think that if we're nice to ourselves that means we're being indulgent, or we're going to
Exactly. Or
not have
lazy or
motivation or lazy.
yeah.
Yeah. Can there be a middle way there?
Exactly. What is the middle ground for sure?
Yeah. Maybe we can be clear in our intentions and firm about them without it being negative or
Yes.
shaming or guilt ridden.
Yeah, because then you're going to develop an association with a practice that when I miss, then I feel bad. And it's like, I don't want to do that practice because then I'm negative to myself. And then I feel
Hmm.
bad. Then I feel guilt. Then you kind of go down that spiral.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some ways that we could flip the script on that and make it so
Yes.
that we look forward to meditating
Ooh,
and
that
that
would be
it's,
great.
wouldn't that be nice? It's like has a good association with it.
Yeah, it was interesting when I took a mindfulness meditation. I did a retreat at that Buddha center that I went to, and the teacher, I remember he had us journal and send our journal entries to him, and I said, "Oh, this feels like something else to add to my to-do list. I don't know if I got time for this," and I think that's very common. And you know what he wrote? He wrote me back, and he goes, "Just remember that this is a gift to yourself." And that it shouldn't be something that's quote unquote on your to-do list. So just try to reframe
Mm,
it somehow that this is a gift for you, this is part of your wellness and something that can really change your relationship with yourself, right? Mentally, spiritually, emotionally, to really help you live a better life overall.
mm. The energy of that statement, that this is a
Yeah.
gift to yourself, not a chore, a gift.
I know. For me, I was like, wait, I got to do this and I got to do that and I got to do this after work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reframe. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
huge.
beautiful. What about setting up a space in your home where you're
Yes,
going to meditate? Any
absolutely.
any tips for that? Having a
Yeah,
spot.
you do need that because, and of course, I know it's more difficult for some people to find a quiet space, but that means that if you do have kids or partners, roommates, that you talk to them and set some boundaries with them too. That this is your time, and that you're going to be meditating. Hopefully, they'll follow that. But I'm lucky that I'm in my meditation yoga room right now that I can use this. It's already set up. I didn't always have this. I lived in a townhouse and I used to have a space under the stairs. I was like Harry Potter. Literally was under the stairs.
How cute is
Um,
that?
you do what
I
you got
love
to
it.
do.
I
So
love it.
even finding a closet, find to put objects in there too that like you said to get to that place that this is what I want to do. Objects that bring you joy. It could be pictures of loved ones, making a little altar if you want, putting flowers. You could use crystals, essential oils, thinking of all those holistic things that you can connect with. Tarot cards, doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's something that you feel good about. And that can also be pleasant too if you want to put meditation music and just try to think of it as a whole experience for yourself.
Yeah, without making it like so complicated that it makes it even harder to do. There's like a
Yeah,
balance there, I
it
think,
is. It
but
is.
like you want a pleasant space that you're drawn to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you don't have to sit on that's another thing I talk about. I know you talked about that in your meditation with pain too. You don't have to sit on a meditation cushion. You don't have to buy the expensive cushion. You can just sit on the floor if you want, or if you want to sit in a chair. There is
Mhm.
nothing wrong with meditation with sitting in a chair. I have back pain. I have to do that sometimes. It's okay. So just find what's
Absolutely.
comfortable for you and, use your pillows, blankets. If you got blocks, put that under your feet, whatever works for you to make this a most comfortable experience. And I think that can make a difference.
Yeah, I love the image of you in your little meditation nook under the stairs. It's so cute, and it made me remember like when I first started meditating. We lived in a one bedroom
Yeah,
apartment, and I just grabbed a little pillow off the couch and used to sit on that in the living room between my
exactly.
my computer desk and my little IKEA couch. And it was nothing fancy, and I could sit on that little cushion because I was like in my 20s, at the time. And so
Yes.
more often now I will sit on a chair or, something else
Right.
that feels better for my body. But yeah, it's
Absolutely.
a great point. It does not need to be fancy and it does not need to be like perfect, but we want
Yeah.
something that we feel drawn to, that feels good, that feels inviting.
Yeah. And I know for me, once I got going, I had one day that I got up and I was like, I don't know if I want to do meditation, but it was interesting. My body just kind of walked to my meditation space. It was like my body just wanted to get there. And of course, once I get into my position and just sit on the chair, then I'm good. But I think that, just overcoming those hurdles of talking ourselves out of it, making excuses, which brings me back to what I was saying about starting small. You know what? Short meditations count. It's okay to do
Totally.
2 to 3 minutes. Sometimes maybe I'll do 5 if I have time, but I don't always have time for 15, 20 minutes. And that's okay.
Yeah, it's better to do, an amount of time that doesn't feel forced, because if you
Yeah.
are feeling pressed for time and you're trying to fit this in and,
And then you're looking at your
it's just
watch
stressing you out, yeah, it's not really the point.
and
Right.
your mind's going to be wandering more. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
I think especially when you first start out, having shorter meditations is a good way to learn, because you can overwhelm yourself, especially if you have anxiety or stuff like that.
yes.
Trying to do too much at once is not always helpful.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with trauma, sometimes it maybe if you're really in really high activation mode with your nervous system, maybe now is not the time for meditation. Maybe you got to try some
Hmm.
other modalities until you work through it. But not beating
Hmm.
yourself up for that, but just saying it's okay. Maybe another time.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's like when you go to your medicine cabinet, right? Like, you need to
Yeah.
choose the correct medicine for
Yes.
the illness of the day, right? Pepto Bismol does something different than Sudafed, and
Yes.
they can both be valuable. A
Exactly.
different day.
But if you have family members too at home, just see if you can get them involved. Sometimes that can be an accountability partner right at home and kids
Hmm.
too. I mean, kids can really benefit from meditation too. Starting that practice early is a wonderful idea.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like, sometimes we tell ourselves stories about like, oh, I'm taking time away from my people if I go off and
Yes.
do this. But I think many people have had the experience, once they've dedicated themselves to a practice like meditation, that when they start missing days and they get a little more frazzled and frayed around the edges, and their loved ones will actually say, honey, maybe you should go meditate. We really like you when you meditate.
Exactly. They might notice the difference. And again, we're back to reframe, right? So just saying this
Yeah.
is my time for me, just thinking about those affirmations. What can I tell myself about this time? Instead of coming up with excuses that, oh, I can't take time from my family, or you really got to give back to yourself in order to be the best partner, the best mom, whatever your roles are.
Hmm. And you talked about first thing in the morning works for you,
Yep.
but not for everybody. We're not
No,
all
I know.
great morning people. So, how
And
would
that's
you have
okay.
suggestions for, practical things for choosing a time of
That's
day
true.
that works for you?
And I think considering your schedule, so really being honest about that, because maybe lunchtime's better for you. When are you most alert? If when do you think you would follow through the most? I guess is the question.
Hmm.
Some people like to do at the end of the day, but if you really want to try before bed, sometimes that can be helpful because you're already kind of winding down, and it seems like a natural way to kind of get yourself into sleep mode. Let me do a calming meditation, or maybe
Hmm.
try a yoga nidra where you can lay down really get
Yeah.
relaxed, right? And so, yeah, I just think find it, but associate it with something. So, let's say that if you do it before bed, associating it with brushing your teeth. So, I brush my teeth as part of my routine, and then I meditate. So, if having something that what that does in your brain, that it reminds your brain, oh, so once I do this, the brain loves routine and knowing what to
Mm.
expect. And then you're going to remember to do it more often. Or just even putting reminders in your phone or just try to be creative with ways to remind yourself, especially as you're getting started, until it
Mm-hmm.
becomes a habit, because it does take time to get used to it. But if you try, let's say you try before bed, but it doesn't work, try something else. Just try to be flexible with this. I think we get in that inflexible thinking. I tried, it doesn't work. Right? I fell asleep. It didn't work.
All those other people over there can do this, but this is not for me.
Yeah, this is not for me. Yes. I get that a lot from well, it's funny because I get clients, they'll be like, "So tell me, what kind of breath work do you do? Show me." And they're just like, "It doesn't work." They do it one time. I'm like, "No, that doesn't work. You're right. Let's
They
try
just did
something else."
one sort of tense breath and they were like, that was it.
That doesn't work.
I gave it a shot.
I gave it a go. So just, yeah, sometimes we got to make sure that we're really putting in the effort into to really give it a
Mm-hmm.
go, and give it some time to really sink in as a habit.
I like that suggestion of linking it to something else that you're already doing,
Yes.
like brushing your teeth. What are a few more examples like that where you might tie it to something that's already kind of baked into your day?
Well, in the morning, I think if you make coffee or tea, or if you don't like that and drink water, just whatever beverage, you know, I have
Mm-hmm.
my beverage and then I meditate, or I meditate and then have my beverage, whatever works for you. So just figure out what kind of fits
Mm-hmm.
in with what you got going on.
I
And
feed the
better yet,
cat and then I
yeah, I know
meditate,
exactly.
or I walk the dog and then I meditate, or something like
Yes.
that.
I get home from work and that's my meditation time. And I think that's a great way to think about it too. Transitions are important too.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you transition out of work? What do you do? What are some rituals? And sometimes that could be one, right?
That's actually one of my favorites. One of my favorite
Yeah,
times
me
of day
too.
has always been to meditate kind of in the evening, early evening, when I'm stopping my work and then shifting gears to being at home and doing dinner and all of that. And I work in the same room that I meditated. I've got my
Me
yoga
too.
mat over there and I've got my computer right
Yes.
here. So that's not always an easy shift um, to make, but it really helps so that I am putting kind of a stopping point on doing my work
Yes.
and shifting gears and going more into home mode.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think just finding, something at the end of the day that can kind of tell your brain too that this is the end of the day and let me just end work and then I'm shifting to my personal time.
Hmm. Yeah, it can be super useful for that and for kind of calming down the activation of the day and how our nervous system is
Yes.
responded, how our brain is still
Yep.
processing, and all of that
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Good practice.
I like that. How do you feel about guided meditations? Do you use them, like them,
I
recommend
do.
them, or?
I love guided meditations. So yeah, I've been doing actually this month on Insight Timer. They have a 30-day challenge. So I don't know if you've seen that, but they have it. There's different. There is this time is different. They're doing it's 30 different like wellness modalities
Hmm.
that you can practice. It's really fun. They have all different things. Like I said, trying different things I think is important. I like guided. I do some on my own. I kind of mix it up and try to be
Hmm.
creative with it. Sometimes I go to YouTube if there's somebody I see on there I like and go from there.
Nice. I think it's a good way to kind of get exposed to different teachers and different techniques to use a
Oh
guided
yeah.
meditation.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then if you get somebody you don't like, don't just realize that's not everybody.
Yeah.
Because there
Hopefully, it won't
are
be the
there are
first
some
one.
duds.
Or you might not like their pace or their voice or
Exactly.
the
Hmm.
technique or who knows. Yeah. Maybe someone else loves
Absolutely.
it. Um, what about you also talked about journaling and using
Oh
journaling as
yeah,
a
for
part
sure.
of supporting your meditation practice? Like how does that fit in? How does that like enrich the whole experience or support it?
I think it can help you to kind of reflect on your practice. Like I told you with the one course I was taking, we actually did mindful yoga as well, and he wanted us to reflect, and I think it was like a 4-week series and journal about it and write to him, which was interesting to get feedback. But it really helps to integrate your practice And I think before you start, to think about why do you want to meditate? What is your why?
Mm-hmm.
Because yours might be different than mine. It could be maybe just to, release stress, or maybe you heard it's beneficial, but really digging deep. And I think with journaling, you can get into deeper parts of your brain to really process more than if you just talk about it or think about it. And a lot of times, like I tell clients, to get things out of your head onto the paper, right? Sometimes we got to release things, or from our heart, things that might be
Mm-hmm.
bothering us. And, and thinking about meditation practice, if we're journaling, we can write down, didn't go well, and really process it. Or is that connected to how you showed up today? Because maybe it wasn't as bad as you thought. Right? Maybe you're just in a bad mood, and that's okay though.
Yeah, that can be, I could see that being used in multiple different ways, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
with like really exploring your intention. And you can use that to help remind yourself of why you want to practice, especially in those moments when you're tempted not to.
Yes.
Would you
Exactly.
ever
Coming
like open your journal up and reread that and go like, oh yeah.
Here it is. Right. Or you could put it for your affirmations, right? To encourage yourself. So finding that
Hmm.
inner encourager to say, like, this is what I'm going to remind myself that, I can do this. I've started other things before and stuck with it. Let me give this a go. And sometimes we got to
Hmm.
go back, and especially on bad days, to say, okay, where's my encouraging words? Because they're not in my head right now. So they're in my journal. Let me repeat those.
Yeah, and it could also be a good place to just note interesting things that come up in meditation that
That's
you can
true.
easily forget. But if you just sort
Oh,
of
yeah.
note, like, oh, today, I noticed I was thinking a lot about planning. And then
Yes.
you look
Hmm.
back, and over the last week, you've been planning every day. It's like, oh, I'm starting to see little patterns here from what's going on in the meditation.
Exactly. And you might find more successes too as you look back to say,
Hmm.
that maybe you are having more success with staying focused than you did before. And just noting that and being aware. I think it brings awareness too when you're journaling about it.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, my only caution might be like getting into the mode where your meditation becomes like, okay, what am I going to write about this in my journal?
Right. Yeah,
Do you
that's
ever
true.
fall into that?
Yeah, not really, but I could
Writing
see
your
how.
report.
Let me see. I'm going to write about this part of meditation.
I could see
But I think
myself doing that. That's why I ask.
don't overthink. Right. Or don't
Exactly.
overanalyze. So, yeah,
Hmm.
I think just because you do got to that means you got to bring yourself back to the present moment, right? If you're
Exactly.
thinking ahead. So, back to the
Hmm.
sensations, back to what is going through my mind, what's coming up for me right now.
Hmm. But it could really help
Yeah.
you remember different things you've tried that
Yeah.
you liked, that worked for you that day, or
Maybe that could
um,
be a journal entry as part of it, to say what went well today, and then
yeah,
what do I need to work on or think about for next time. And
yeah.
yeah.
And you'll see your growth like over time if you use
Yeah,
a
good
journal
idea.
like that to kind of track your meditation. Do you
Absolutely.
use like journal prompts at all, or do you just sort of keep it free form and in the
Yeah.
moment, or
I've kind of done both. I don't like prompts that much. It feels constricting. But sometimes I have done some prompts. But I did hear about something I'm going to look up, that your listeners might be interested in too. There's something called a 5-minute journal. I haven't had
Hmm.
time to look it up. I heard this on a podcast, and I was like, I got to look into this. So, and they said that they use it just for like, it's like quick things like, what did I accomplish today? And name 3
Hmm.
things. Or I was like, that sounds great. That sounds like it would be much more accessible to a lot of people.
Yeah, because if you're like the kind of person that's gonna get stuck looking at the blank page and kind of
Yes.
drawing a blank, you might benefit from having a theme or a prompt.
Yeah, I think so. And there's a lot of good books out there too that have a lot of good journaling prompts too, if you feel like you need that to get started.
Hmm. It's sort of making me think about, we have meditation practices for loving kindness, for compassion, for gratitude, for equanimity,
Yep.
for
Mm,
all these different flavors within, under the mindfulness umbrella within the tradition. And, those could make really interesting prompts to write a little bit about and then do the meditation practice.
that's true. Really keeping track of that and seeing which ones you like. And then knowing that, okay, so loving kindness, maybe that is something I could use more often if that was a positive experience. And
What other Are there any kind of final words about motivating oneself to practice, or how, when you're really feeling like you're losing that motivation, what do you call upon to get yourself, back in that place of momentum and inspiration?
yeah, I think just avoiding overthinking it, because I think some people talk, like I said, talk themselves out of it, make excuses,
Doubt.
or really believe it. Yeah, believing that I don't have time, right? So figuring out what will work for me and how can I make this work. I think that's a way to look at it too, because I think we can get caught into that negative mindset that I don't got time for that, even though I want to. It's kind of that back and forth. But let me figure out and problem solve this. Let me figure out a time that works and practice it, and kind of go
Hmm.
from there. But if you have spiritual practices, you could make that part of it too, right? If you have something you like to do spiritually during that time, sometimes that could
Hmm.
help maybe motivate you too.
Like reading an inspirational passage from a
Yeah,
book or
absolutely.
something
Yep.
like that, and then folding that into your meditation.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
combining something else with, or prayer if you like to pray, or mala beads, and whatever it is you like to do, maybe
Hmm.
adding that in if that's something that motivates you.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I'm taking from your advice is don't be afraid to make it your own. Like when it
Yes,
comes down to
please.
like when and where and how you sit, it needs to
Yes.
become your practice.
And that's it. It's a practice, and just remember that too. I know, going back full circle to what we started with, that it's a process, right? And it's a practice.
Hmm.
So trying to get out of that mindset that we have to be productive, and just allowing this state of
Hmm.
being with it, right? With the
Yeah.
meditation, and just giving yourself permission for that.
And noticing how you feel at the end.
Yeah, that's huge. It's a good reminder, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, thank you for all of these amazing practical tips. And I think they're so important to really think
Yeah.
about, because even as our, like, starting a practice, definitely then, but even as our practice and our lives change over time, to revisit this every so often, I think is really useful, because there are these little things that can really hang us up and stop
Mm-hmm.
us from doing the thing that we need to do for enhancing our lives. So, thank you for all of these practical suggestions.
Sure. This is great. I'm glad we could have this conversation.
Me too. It's just a topic that's so close to my heart, and I can tell it is yours too.
Yes, I love it. I love helping people with this.
Me too. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for taking the time to be on the podcast. Can you
Sure.
tell us a little more about where people can find you and learn more
Yeah,
about your
definitely.
offerings?
So I have a podcast called the Holistic Counseling Podcast, and I think your listeners, if you're interested in meditation, I have an episode that I think you will love. It's my number one downloaded episode. It's called The Inward Facing Journey with Joe Gilbert, and it's episode 20. So if you're on your podcast catcher right now, you can look it up. And that's the
Nice.
Holistic Counseling Podcast. I also have that website by the same name, holisticcounselingpodcast.com. So go ahead and check it out. I think you'll really love. That is one of my favorite episodes that
I'll be
people
sure
I've
to link
interviewed.
to
So
that in the show notes so people can
yeah,
find that
yeah,
episode. It will be in the resources.
it's definitely a good one for meditation.
Yeah. Anything else? Do you do social media, or just
Yeah, I'm
mainly
on
your website?
my website. I'm on everything. So Instagram, yeah. It it's Holistic Counseling Podcast, and TikTok. I just started TikTok. So
You're going to do
Holistic
TikTok?
C Podcast.
All
Yeah.
right. I know everybody's getting over there, and I have
I
not
know.
done
It's
that.
kind of fun. It's kind of fun. Yes.
Yeah, I'm still figuring out being on YouTube, and that's been around forever. So,
Oh, I know, right? Awesome.
well, awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. This has been really fun to talk
Thank
about.
you.
And yeah, I look forward to keeping the connection going. And I hope this
Yes, for
helps
sure.
people to connect to their meditation practice. So that's today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with a friend and/or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and help others find us that way. To learn more about my work, the Moved to Meditate class library, live online classes, teacher trainings, and private lessons, go to movedtomeditate.yoga. Thanks so much for listening.